guys, it's Michelle from Cozyegg, and today is Monday, November 11th, 2019, Veterans Day here in the US. This is episode 80. So thanks for joining me. If you are a new viewer, thanks for checking me out. If you are a returning viewer, thanks for coming back. So, it's, of course, been a month since we last spoke, and the last time I filmed was October 14th, so we had, just about a couple of weeks into dark October stitching, and I shared with you kind of what my plans were for the rest of the month, and then kind of starting in November. So I figure we'll just start there and we'll talk about dark October stitching. So, like I said, the last time I filmed was October 14th. So that of course meant that I was working on dark October stitching as well as dark 13 stitching. This is in my moth bag, my Luna moth bag. And so I was working on Jinx, which is by Raise the Roof Designs. I believe now out of print. Jinx. And so the reason that I decided to work on this one for dark 13 stitching, you can probably figure that out for yourself. So, I had this out. Now, in all honesty, after I filmed my video that night, I didn't stitch. I sat on the couch and watched Gilmore Girls. And then the next night, I think I had a migraine, so I didn't stitch either. But then once I was feeling better, I did do my other 2 days on Jinx that I had planned. So just as a refresher, so for dark October stitching, I was trying to do 3 days per piece, just to give myself a good, number of, or a good amount of, time to make progress on something. So of course I stitched on this on the 13th, but then 2 days nothing, but then I went back to it. So here is how far I got. So basically what I worked on was the ladder. I got all the way up, and I've started to kind of come to the other side of the ladder, and I worked a little more on filling in the moon. I think if I put, I want to say 2 days, but that's probably more like a week. If I put a week's worth of stitching in this, I could have this done and off my plate. This is on, so I'm using, well, I was going to say I'm using DMC, but I'm not. So this is on Under the Sea Fabrics. The color is Love Child, and it's 32 count. And the fabric was a gift from Christine of Stitch All the Things. And so it calls for gentle arts and weeks, and I am actually using the called for. I'm using the called for weeks Moon Glow for the moon. I'm using the called for, I am not using the called, they called for Gentle Arts Black Crow. I'm using Weeks Mascara. And then for the white, which isn't on here yet, there's a lightning bolt next to the ladder. I'm actually going to use, they call for Weeks White Lightning, which I don't have, so I'm going to use Gentle Arts Parched Bones, because parched bones. So anyway, those are what I'm using. This is how far I got in my 3 days of stitching. And my plan is that I'll get this back out for dark 13 stitching at some point and try to finish it up. So I worked on Jinx, and then the next thing that I got out was Barbara Anna Black Cat Hollow, which I hope is in this bag. It is. Good. So, a couple of things. And this is in my sort of catch-all Raven bag, which has like 4 projects in it. I may have to go break up a fight. See if I hear any more squealing. All right, so Barbara Anna Black Cat Hollow. This is a design that came in 3 sections. It was like a mystery sampler, basically. So I'm stitching this on 32 count Murky by Picture This Plus. And there is my progress. So when I picked this up, yeah, I'm gonna have to go break up a fight. Uno momento. Okay, where were we? Cats. Okay, so Barbara Anna, Black Cat Hollow. Speaking of black cats. I finished, so when I picked this up, I finished stitching the willow tree and brought it down to where it meets the grass. I stitched the 2 gravestones, the key, then this little house, which I love. And then I went back up here to the top and I started the vine up here. So that's what I got done. I think it probably, honestly, I don't remember. I want to say that it took me more than my 3 days to do my 3 days, because I had several days in October that I just wasn't all together. Nope, I did it in, I actually worked on it 4 days. So there you go. Yeah. So I worked on it 4 days. I'm happy with the progress that I got done. Here's what I discovered when I picked this back up though. So I'm stitching this in the called for DMC, like I said, on 32 count Murky. I hate this fabric. I love how this is looking on the fabric, and I'm stitching 2/2, so the coverage is great. I like how it looks on the fabric, but the feel of this, I mean, it's, to me, this does not feel like linen to me at all. Meaning, and maybe it's because my nose is so red. Maybe it's because I am so used to stitching on 40 count, but the weave on this is so tight, and it almost feels, it's just heavy. Like it almost feels like not fine linen. It feels like burlappy to me. You know what I mean? Do you know what like it feels like canvas. That's what it feels like. This does not feel like stitching linen. And so I don't know if it's the dye process. I don't know if it's because it's 32 count. I don't know, but I don't like the feel of it, and I do not like stitching on it. My intent is to keep going on it because it's not a huge piece. I do like how the stitching is looking, but I really wish that I had done this in 40 count, or at the very least 36 count. And I felt 40 count murky, and it doesn't feel at all like this. It does not feel canvassy like this. So I don't know what the deal is, but I don't like it. When I was stitching this, so like right below the house and below the tombstones, you know, there's a big, you know, patch of grass. And the color that it calls for is the same as this darker up here on the willow tree, which to my eyes is a little more, you know, kind of a goldish green. And I got to thinking about it. That I almost want, like in that big area where it's so much fill-in, it's just dense stitching. I'm thinking I may want to use a variegated, like an overdyed instead of a DMC. So I pulled two, which I can try. This is Bean Sprout by Classic Colorworks, which is pretty green, so that may be too green. It's not as green as it's showing up here. And then I also pulled Pea Pod, which is actually what I had in mind. So it's closer to the DMC green, but it's not quite as gold, but it's got some variegation in it. So I'm thinking I may use that for my grassy knoll. That's what I'm thinking. So whenever I get this back out again, I'm going to experiment with those two and see what I think. But I'm happy with the progress that I made on this. And like I said, even though I'm not happy with this fabric, I'm happy with how it looks. I'm not happy with how it stitches. It's just stiff and gross. So, at some point I'll get back to that and see if I can finish off part one. So that was Black Cat Hollow. And then I had intended to pick up a couple more things during the month. I was going to work on, I was going to go back to my Halloween neighborhood and work on it some more. I had contemplated going back to Hallow Eden and working on it some more. I was going to pick up my Dracula book cover and work on it Halloween night. But I ended up just picking up Blacked Sky and working on it for the rest of the month. So I did my 3 days on Jinx. I did my 4 days on Black Cat Hollow. And then I picked up Blacked Sky to work on it. And this is in my Mama Joan bag. And here is the chart. And I do, in case you're new, I do take my charts out of the plastic thing, you know, Ziploc bags that they're in, and I have all of my charts in notebooks. So this is an original, out of print, don't ask. But that's why they're in these sleeves, because they come out of my notebook and go right in here. And I am working from a working copy. So I picked this up and worked on it for the rest of the month, and in fact it is still in my Q-snap. So here is where I got to. I'm stitching this on the called for 40 count vintage pear by Lakeside. I'm stitching it with the called for pure palette silks with an asterisk. Let me explain. So when I picked this up, I had stitched, I'm working on block, it's technically block 4. I had stitched these first 2 bands and then the first row of alphabet. And the color that it calls for in the pure palette silks is called Sedona. And I think I mentioned to you the last time we spoke, here's the silk. Beautiful, absolutely beautiful color. But what I have noticed with these silks, and I noticed it with the black, but it didn't really bother me, but on this one it's really prevalent. So while it looks beautiful and color saturated here in the skein, when you pull off one strand of it, it is super, super light. And you're not going to be able to tell, but here's what I think has happened, just based on how this looks. It almost looks like the dye did not permeate the entire twist of the thread, because it's not like you can look at it like this. Like here it looks fine. It's only when you start to separate the strands that you see the white spots. And so it's almost like the dye just didn't totally saturate through that twist. It's the strangest thing. I've never seen anything like it. So because of that, it makes one strand of it so light, and you're not getting the saturation of color that you really want, right? So as I was stitching with it, because there's so much lightness to it, it was not showing up against my fabric at all, or at least not to the extent that I wanted it to. And because it's letters and it's, you know, stitched decorative bands, I really wanted to be able to see the stitching, you know, whereas had it been a larger sort of filled in area, maybe it wouldn't have been a big deal. But it was a no-go. So I pulled out, she has a DMC conversion, so I went and pulled the DMC for it and stitched a couple of letters with the DMC, with the called for DMC. And it was okay. But when you look at this color, it almost leans a little pink, and the DMC leans more brown. So I went and pulled, you know, I got my DMC color card, and I thought, okay, I'm gonna see if I can do a better match, because this doesn't, it's not the right tone for this thread. I apologize to Lisa that I second guessed her. Let me just say that. So in the DMC color card, the DMC that she calls for is actually the closest thing to this color. There is nothing that is closer to my eye. So I pulled a couple other threads that I had. I pulled an Valeries, I pulled I think an NPI, and nothing was really working. So I had gone over to visit some friends and brought this with me, and, you know, explained my conundrum. And so a friend of mine pulled out her Valeries stash and said, let's see if we can find something, because I only have a limited number of Valeries, mostly because that's what I stitched my dad's memorial sampler with. So we found a color that we thought was pretty darn close, and it is it's a Valeries Soie d'Alger 4614, and it's excuse me, it's pretty darn close. It's a little bit redder, but it is pretty darn close. So I ripped out all of these two bands, these two decorative bands, and then all of this line of alphabet, and restitched it with the new Valeries. Very happy with it. And then proceeded to stitch the rest of the block. So that color really only shows up in one other block in a small area. So I don't need, you know, much more than what I've used here, but I was happy to have that whole skein to work with, which of course I will replace. So I'm really happy with how this turned out, and next I'll move over to work on this block. But I really wanted to have a block done by the end of the month, and I actually finished this up on the 1st. So pretty happy with that. And I'm happy with the color substitution. I think that with the other colors here, I think it really works well. And I'm actually gonna take this out of the Q-snap. It needs to come out anyway. But then I can kind of show you what the whole thing looks like right now. So, and what I will tell you is that at the end of the month, the end of October, I got the opportunity to meet up with a couple other stitchers. So Valerie, who is, I think, SF Valerie on Instagram, she and I have known each other forever through blogging, and had met previously years ago when she came to Dallas, and she was going to be in town. There was a local stitching retreat that was going on called the North Texas Get Together, and so she had been to that previously and reached out to myself and Andrea from Deep Fried Cupcake on Instagram, and asked if the two of us wanted to join her at the retreat. Unfortunately, they had very few spots left, and neither one of us got in time to not be on the waiting list. But then I was the lucky recipient of someone that already had a seat giving me their spot because they couldn't make it. So because we couldn't all three go to the retreat, we decided to meet up on Halloween. I had taken the day off work, and so we met up, the three of us, went and had lunch, and then went over to my local needle workshop, the Stitch Niche, and hung out and visited. And then Friday and Saturday, the 1st and 2nd, was the retreat. And so I brought Black and Sky to work on and finished it up on that first day of the retreat. So here's what it's looking like in its entirety right now. So I still have about half of that top border that I need to get done, but I'm really happy with how it's turned out. And I think that the color of that thread works. I think it is in keeping with the other colors in the sampler. So very happy with that. And I got to use another new color, which is that orange, which is called Saffron. So I always like being able to use a new color. So very happy with that. Very, very happy that I got to meet Andrea for the first time, even though we've known each other through blogging for, I think I started blogging in 2006. I think she said she started blogging in 2007. So we've known each other since then. But this is the first time that I got the opportunity to meet her in person, which was so fun because we both live right here and have never had the opportunity to meet. So super thankful for that. So that's how I ended out my month. And like I said, I took this with me to the retreat and finished up my block there on November 1st, which I was super happy about. So what have I been working on since then? I've been doing secret stitching. So Sylvia, if you're watching this, you're gonna need to turn this off. Sorry. So this is what I've been working on. And this is in my Tula Pink Love You More Studio Co. Sleeve that I got for my birthday. And so obviously you can probably tell who I'm stitching this for. So this piece is, it's by the Scarlet House. It's called Be My Friend. And this was from the Silver Needle Club. A little help from our friends Stitching Circle. So this was an exclusive for that. A friend of mine belonged to that club, got this kit, stitched it, and then passed the chart along to me. And so when I saw it, I thought this would be a fun little piece to stitch. So this is what it looks like. And it calls for Weeks Dye Works. The kit that they did actually called for or came with Wren from Picture This Plus. I am using doubloon, and this is where I'm at. So after I finished that block on Blacked Sky, I have been working on this since then. I thought this was going to be a super quick stitch and I'd be done with it weeks ago, but that is not the case. My stitching life has been severely impaired by how tired I am. So I've not been staying up late. I've been going to bed super early. So all that I have left on this, I'm leaving out the little things at the little decorative thing at the bottom. I don't think I need it, so I'm just leaving that out. I do need to fill in this side of the house. Now it called for gunmetal, which is so dark that it looks like it's the exact same color as the roof, and so then you sort of lose the definition between the roof and the side of the house. So I'm gonna see if I can find something else to do that side of the house with. I would have had this done last night if I hadn't run into that issue. So anyway, so that's what I've been working on, and hopefully I will have this finished tonight, if the thread that I pulled works. We'll see. So that's what I've been working on. And then as soon as I get this done, and I'm going to be finishing this into a project bag. So that's my plan anyway. We'll see how that is on execution. Okay, so once I finish with that, the two pieces that I want to work on and kind of focus on for the rest of the year are Sampler Sisters, which I showed you last time. This is another primitive needle piece. Here's where I'm at. I have a ways to go at the top. Here is the sampler. So I've stitched about to here. I need to fill in this part with my name and everything, but I had to totally rechart it because my name is so long, it won't all fit. So I need to do all of this in here, and then the alphabet and stuff up at the top. So I'm a little less than halfway done, probably. So I want to focus on this because I'd really like to have it finished by the end of the year. And if I can finish that other piece tonight, I'd really like to work on this, pick this up tonight, because last year on November 11th was the day that the SAL started for this. So Diana, It Is Kismet Stitches, and Emily, Eclectic Possessions, and Wide-Eyed Stitching Child, and I think some other folks started this. I had already started mine, but I picked it back up and worked on it then during November. So I'd really love to pick it back up tonight and work on it, since it's kind of the anniversary of having done that. But I really want to get this piece finished this year. And then the other piece that I want to work on and concentrate and get to a finish is my crowned bird sampler by Plum Street that was designed for my guild back in 2013. Crowned bird sampler. There it is. And yes, it's still in the thing. It's never made it to my notebooks because it was a kit. So here is where I'm at on the crowned bird. And I was going really good on this and then stopped for Dark October. So I really want to get back to this. So I'm about halfway done. And I have changed the verse. I'm still sort of working on how the verse down here to the right of the house fits. So I know a couple people have asked me for the verse change, which I am happy to send as soon as I figure out if it's going to fit or not. So, but I'm about halfway done with this. I love it. I love how it's looking, and I'm anxious to get back to it. I was actually going to pick this up first and work to finish it and then work on Sampler Sisters, but then the reminder came up in my journal app that I use, my Day One app. And so I journal in my Day One app every day, and when you open it, it will show you everything, like every entry on that day for previous years. And so it showed me the start of the Sal, and I was like, okay, maybe I need to pick that one back up tonight. So, but these two pieces are what I want to concentrate on for the rest of the year. I would like to have both of these samplers done by the end of the year. And I think that's doable because I stitched basically half of Crown Bird in a month. So I think a month to stitch the rest of it should be fine. And Sampler Sisters, I think, can fit in by the end of the month as well. So I don't really have any holiday stitching or Christmas stitching or anything like that that I have planned. So I'm just going to focus on these two things. And I'm starting to put together plans for next year, but I'm not even going to talk about that now because I started to pull stuff out and then I was like, no. I'm going to focus on these two samplers. That's what I'm going to do. Okay. So, Sampler Sisters, Crown Bird. Okay. And so I do have a little bit of stash enhancement, which I alluded to because we went to the Stitch Niche. So while we were there, I picked up a piece of fabric. This is the other thing, is that I really want to focus on purchasing fabric to stitch some of the things that are high on my to stitch list rather than buying new charts. So with that being said, I had been eyeing this piece of fabric for a while. This is Picture This Plus Barnwood, 36 count. Now normally you'll say, Michelle, you don't like 36 count, right? And you're not wrong. I do not like 36 count, but after the issues that I had stitching La Luna on that 40 count Gothic fabric, that was painful, and I think it was due in part because of the dyeing process made that 40 count more like 45 count, because it was super tight. But then also the dark fabric made it more difficult to see than normal. I can stitch on 40 count all day, any day, but that 40 count Gothic was super challenging. So I thought, this is a semi-dark piece of fabric. I'm gonna try the 36 count and see how I like it. And I am actually planning on stitching a piece that I'm charting right now on this. So that's why I've sort of been eyeing it because I thought it would be kind of perfect. So more to come on that, but I did pick this piece up. I think it will be beautiful. And I really like being able to buy fabric in person, especially Picture This Plus, because then you can really kind of see what it looks like and what your piece is gonna look like. So that was all that I got at the Stitch Niche, was just that piece of fabric. And then Valerie gifted Andrea and I with these little sweet pin cushions from Lady Dot. Look at that. So cute. Black wool. And then that stripy wool felt ball here. And then those sweet pins. Look at that. How cute is that? And so this is from Lady Dot Creates, Boo and Squeaks. And you may have seen these on, I think Lindy Stitches showed them on her video, and may have had them in her Etsy shop as well. So, super cute. So thank you, Valerie. And then during the retreat, well, let me back up. A very, very sweet stitcher, Amy Baroud, stitched this and recently finished it, Birds of a Feather, Happy Heart sampler. And this is a sampler that I've been in love with for ever, like since the first time I ever saw it, which I think was when Siobhan stitched it a million years ago. I just love this. And it's one of those samplers that I wish that I had bought and never did and regretted it. And I so enjoyed watching Amy's progress on this and just cheering her along. And she offered to send it to me. So when she finished, she sent it to me. And not only did she send me this chart, but she also sent me some of her amazing needle minders. And she said she picked ones she thought would be perfect for me. One of them is on my Be My Friend that had two little rabbits in red dresses. And, oops, on the back of them, she uses these antique buttons, which are so fun. So I absolutely love these. Thank you, Amy. So I was on a mission because I really want to stitch this for Eric for our anniversary or for Valentine's Day for next year. So I was on a mission to find fabric for it. Didn't find anything that I thought worked at the Stitch Niche. So Valerie was on a mission to find some fragrant cloves. Well, we were at the wind is crazy. If you can hear my wind chimes going and that wind. So it was 75 degrees yesterday. It is now 30 degrees here in Texas. It's super cold and super windy. So Valerie was on a mission to find some fragrant cloves, and I was on a mission to find some fabric. So we went over to another local needle workshop called Creative Stitches, and lo and behold, they had lakeside linen. So I purchased this beautiful piece of 40 count sand dune, and I think it is going to be perfect. I wanted something that was really warm, and I think this is perfect. So very, very happy about that. Very happy about finding some lakeside linen in 40 count, no less, which is exactly what I wanted. So, found a piece of fabric, just need to gather my threads, and then I can start this in the new year. Which I am very much looking forward to. So, thank you, Amy. Okay. And I also picked up some thread drops. So, I was going to talk about this last time, and I did not. But threads are starting to drive me crazy. Those bobbins of DMC are making me nuts, and having to get in and out of floss away bags is also starting to make me nuts. So in my Crown Bird sampler, I put everything back on the tags that it came on, and I clipped my threads at the bottom, and they're super messy because they weren't on here and I had to put them back on here, but whatever. So I clipped them and then put them back on the threads, put them on a ring so I could pretend like I'm Nicole and fondle them beautifully. And of course the NPI did not come on tags, nor did I have tags at my disposal. So I made some wabi-sabi thread drop things for my NPIs. So I like this so much better while I'm working on a project, not necessarily for storage, but while I'm working on a project, this is so much nicer and easier to manage that I bought some thread drops. I know I could get these cheaper, I could make them cheaper, whatever. I don't have time for that. So I just bought some thread drops. And I'm gonna give these a shot. So, those were the two things that I purchased at Creative Stitches. Stitch Niche did not have these. So, okay. So, couple more things. I got my October project bag exchange from Sylvia, and here is what she sent me. So it's a vinyl front bag. She made this sweet little zipper pull, which I love. And it's got like a hematite bead on the end, which I love even more. And then here's the back. Isn't that awesome? I love it. I think I may put my Black Cat Hollow in here, because then it will have its own bag. But I wanted to show it to you first. So I have this on my calendar. I have things like the phases of the moon and astrological events that are happening. And so today, one of the planetary events is that Mercury is transiting the sun, which is a very rare occurrence. But for whatever reason, it keeps sending me reminders that this is happening. So I'm like, Mercury is transiting the moon, the sun, whatever. Okay. Another little thing that I have is that a friend of mine who has been making project bags with abandon sent me some little charms to use for zipper pulls, which is super fun. So she had asked if I wanted one for my Alice in Wonderland bag, which of course I did. And so she sent me this white rabbit. Let me see if I can. It's hard to see, but whatever. You get the picture. So white rabbit. She also sent me these swans. And this little bird on a branch. So I just need to find my little jump rings so that I can make those into zipper pulls. Super fun. And then the last little piece of stash enhancement. So Nina, who won the Tulip Pink quilt book that I did the giveaway for, sent me this fantastic Halloween card that looks like may have been handmade. I love it. And wrote the sweetest note in it. And then she remembered in one of my videos that I had talked about wanting to do a modern postage stamp quilt. And so she sent me some leftover pieces of Tulip Pink Zuma that are from her quilt that she made. And she had, when I was doing the giveaway for the book, I had asked, what's your favorite line? And she said Zuma, because she was in the process of, or she had just finished her quilt. And so I asked her to send me a picture of it, which she did. And so these are actually leftover pieces from that quilt, which I thought was really sweet and special. So thank you so much, Nina. I love this. I will definitely use these in my postage stamp quilt. They are fantastic. Thank you so much. And thank you for the card. And now there's a cat investigating. So, the only other thing that I wanted to share with you is ear that I did. I had been reading Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix for a couple of months now, and I did finally finish that over the weekend. So I have now started Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, which is book 6. Even though I am not participating in Magical Stitches anymore, I do still want to finish rereading the series this year. So I'm hoping that I can read this one and the next one. Hi. By the end of the year. So that's my plan anyway. The last book, the last book meaning the last one I just read. So book 5, 6, and 7. I think that I have only read these like when they came out. I don't think I've read them since then. So there's a lot that I had forgotten in these. But I am enjoying them, absolutely. But in a way, they're a little harder to read because you know what's coming. Finishing that last book was like, I know what's going to happen, and I don't want to read it. So, but anyway, so I've been reading a little bit. I'm hoping to get some more reading in. Anyway, so that's everything that's going on here other than the usual breaking up fights with my cats because we can't share a pillow. Working like a crazy person. Like I said, I'm so tired, and I think it's just because things are so busy at work. So I've been going to bed early and not staying up until all hours of the night like I normally do. So I've not been watching Flosstube at all. I've not been stitching that much. I'm hoping that that will change. I had so much fun at the retreat with Valerie. I had so much fun spending time with her and Andrea. And I hope that we can all get together again soon. So anyway, I am going to go put on my comfy clothes, including my sweatshirt and fuzzy socks, and maybe have a cup of hot cocoa, and see if I can finish that thing that I'm working on, and then work on Sampler Sisters. So that's my plan. So thanks so much for joining and watching, and I really appreciate you taking the time. It means a lot to me. It really does. So thanks so much for liking, subscribing, following, commenting, all that good stuff. And happy stitching. Bye, guys.